Hello, everyone. This is Incite and Excite, here to discuss the insightful and exciting changing landscape of media representation. For our purposes, we will deal with television and film, because who the hell cares about representation in books? Now, the issue at hand is that normal is no longer normal. So let's step back and see how we got here, because it does really involve everyone. So, what do I mean when I say normal? Well, normal is tied to what you think is normal. And that idea is tied by what you perceive to be the demographics of whatever parameters that you constrict your worldview on. Say, only this demographic goes to the movies. Only this demographic watches this genre. Only this demographic is worth pushing to the top. All because the world around me is this demographic. But this isn't pre 1990. You know that time period before the demographics in the country shifted greatly? I'm not going to comment if that's good or bad, but it's not bad. But we don't have to go that route for this discussion. It's just a reality that occurred. So let's view the pre 1990 era. So, what would the average American see in cinema? Well, you would see white stars, white movies, and by white movies, I mean normal movies, stereotypical representations of minorities, meaning if you were a person of color, you were there to represent your race by whatever characteristic white people put you in. For example, black males were thugs, black women were ratchet prostitutes or welfare queens, right? Latinos were day laborers. Latinas were sex objects. Women were weak in general, which just had them like stay in the background during a scene. Maybe they'll get like a cool scene where they rise up on a man, but again, that wasn't the norm. Asian women were just sex objects, but even more exotic, right? They were alluring for some reason. While Asian men were just fighters, like kung fu, and nothing more because I guess during this time, all Asians were Chinese. So if you were a Chinese dude in a movie, that means you knew how to fight. So you're probably specifically in a action movie. And even then, you're probably in one of those like very niche karate movies, right? Because other than that, you had no purpose to be in the movie during this time. So we see that what was normal during this time was a 18 to 35 white male and female. Now let me correct that. It's more likely like to be 18 to 25-year-old female. So that was normal. They could be lawyers, doctors, a boss, right? Supervisors, bankers, scientists, the average Joe American, and the cool American hero. They could be the cool villain and challenge the hero without any of the baggage that would constitute stereotypes. Unless you were like Eastern European. Maybe that might be like some stereotypes on white guys. But bad guy representation over the years is another video altogether, which should be made. I'm not trying to discredit but we're talking about generalities here. Normal was just white characters because that was what Americans perceived it to be. I remember the myth that black people don't go to the theater, or that movies are just a young middle class luxury. So fuck the poor. If I remember my financial history, what always makes money even during a recession? And yes, that's a rhetorical question. It's movies. That was the past. Sorry, no, I think I painted a good picture of the before time, right? So let's move on to the early post-90s era. So we can just call it the 90s. And we'll call it the bridge between then and now. we got to see some minority representation. And by some, I mean a very small amount. So let's focus on Disney for a bit, right? We got Aladdin, Mulan, The Lion King, Pocahontas, the Hunchback of Notre Dame. Those were the big ones, right? Or at least the ones that most children saw. And for one random example that I watched as a kid, Cool Runnings. So we see some diversity. And I say some ironically, but they were all significant in their own way. But this is where the problem is visible. And Disney is just, one component that used, I won't say still uses, but I think, yes, it's still fair to say uses, that uses this charade. Because it's still visible in almost all forms of visual representation today. All these characters that you see in the screen or in television, all these characters are not normal. They are still otherized, right? This is where being an other is mistaken for diversity. If you're scratching your head, let me explain. Prior to the 1990s, again, white was normal because it was what the public expected to see. Now, during the 90s, we got to see exciting, other people journeys. Other people had crazy and wonderful stories to tell. We got justification for their purpose. All these movies are specific to their environment and people. Try having The Lion King without a lion. And yes, I'm being facetious there, but it's that train of thought. But having a hunchback as an able-bodied person would not make sense, right? That is the only requirement. He has to be deformed, as in not normal. Mulan has to be Asian because she is fighting within a time period that encompasses an Asian war. Pocahontas has to be a Native American because she is in a time that represents the meeting of two different cultures, Native Americans and European explorers. And, so on and so forth. If I'm not clear enough, all these movies are justified to represent minorities. And that justification is, look at them, how they're so different from us. That's what all these movies are. Yes, it is representation, but it's not what I will call equal representation because they're still otherized. And, that reveals the problem of representation as a whole. That all these characters have to be justified, have to be given a reason. And just to point out that in today's time, it has changed. The two movies that come to mind is like Rogue One. We had a very diverse cast of actors in that movie. But like 15 years ago, that movie could have been all white people. And it would have been the same movie. But today, without any justification, we could have different ethnicities, different races of people in this movie without justifying it. Because that's normal today. That's what we expect. That's what we want. Or that's what some of us want. Another recent movie that came out, Stuber, Kumail, right? That could have been a white dude. But in today's time, it doesn't have to go to a white guy. That's the cool part about progress, right? Well, now we get movies with different actors that aren't just white. And so that's what I mean with equal representation. These are the roles that I would consider good roles because you don't have to justify. These aren't otherized roles where you say like the dominant demographic will just see this movie because, it's appealing because it's them, right? It's their story. And so it's exotic, right? Stuber, comedy action, right? Funny, I liked it. But Kumail's ethnicity had nothing to do with the movie. It was just his character. That was what that was important, and that's what I like to see now. All right, and with that, you see why representation changes. What is normal today is not what was normal 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 30 years ago. Cultural mores change, demographics change, language change, what you consider to be cool changes, right? So let's go back to the beginning of the video. I brought up that, white actors are normal because that was perceived normality, right? Characters were white because of that fact. And boom, that character design flaw is the cause for, I guess you could say, the problems that we're having today in Hollywood. Because when you justify the others and you fail to justify what you consider to be normal, I guess normal still is perceived as 1950s America. If you don't justify that, you have no foundation to keep a character with the same characteristics that you grew up on. If that makes sense. If not, leave a comment. I'll explain to you, or I'll debate you like why you think it's still not enough to justify a change. You might say, "Oh, this is just postmodernist," and I would reply, "If it is, so what? Why is that bad?" You'll say it's cultural appropriation, and I will say, "Really?" Okay. You might say a third stupid thing like cultural Marxism, and I'm like, okay, explain. Whenever I hear that, I always say explain. But the reality is that just because something was something in the past doesn't mean it has to be that, or say the same for the future, right? Because people grow up. If that was true, we would still have late 20, early 30s playing teens, in TV or in movies. So, yeah, let's not go back to that, right? And what sucks is that we still hear the justification, I guess, requirement today, right? We still hear that. Like, if you want an LGBTQ character to be a lead, people want a reason for it. They want a justification for having an agenda pushed on them. Just so they can bitch later on. Hollywood can't even get an all-female cast without people bitching because they will say, "Oh, it's just a rehash," right? They've run out of original ideas. But is that even a good argument? Because you retards went bonkers for Spider-Man Far From Home. Hey, I liked the movie too. Very captivating, right? I was never bored in that movie. But again, Spider-Man is progress. And I hope that the people who like Spider-Man recognize that the demographics are changing. So with that all said, right? And if I'm not clear, what was normal was never justified, so it's subject to change. That's the core of this video. So let's discuss the opposite side of this argument. White actors can play anything if nothing matters, right? So yeah, let's go full retard here. Like Scarlett Johansson said, in an ideal world, an actor should play any role. But we're not there yet. We're in the in-between times, right? The changing of normal. The next step to the ideal world. So, Miss Johansson, when you're 60, you can play the hot teen girl next door. Because white actors should be able to get any role, right? And if you think I'm joking about the hot teen girl next door when she's 60, what the hell do you think the whole de-aging technology for actors is for? That's the very reason why that technology was created. Not just so you can have like flashbacks in movies. No, it's to prolong actors' marketability for the public because they want to squeeze every ounce of cash out of these actors, right? Now, before they make an all-female LGBTQ movie of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, what reasons do you have for them to, for these actors to stay white? Let me know down below. I'm curious. I'll even feed the trolls. So if you're hungry, I'm here. Because that's the main issue, right? We justify the others, but let's justify the normal. And if it's just racist reasons, then just say it's for racist reasons. That's acceptable, right? Because as stated before, what is normal today is not what's going to be normal tomorrow. It's not what was normal yesterday. And maybe racism is a yesterday kind of thing. So answer this question with 3 rounds of why. The question is, why can a white person play any character, but a person of color or even a gender swap can't be allowed without justification? And let's not even do the race swap here. Why can't there be a female 007? All right? So answer that question and respond to why 3 times. So answer why, then answer to the why, and then answer why again. Let's see if you can come up with a good reason. All right, so that's basically it. If you made it this far, thanks for listening to me rant. Please subscribe, like the video, and if you hated everything I say, hey, I'm here to feed. I got plenty of food, and let's do it, right? All right, later, guys.